Okay, so now here we are with the last part of this painting, which of course is going to be adding the boat in the front. I really changed it when I painted it because I didn't want it to be so much of the picture. So I'm going to play it down as well when I finish this painting, and also keep it a little bit looser and lacking detail, because as I've said, the more detail you give something and the sharper you paint it, the more your eye is drawn to it. And at the moment, the way that this scene is played out, I'm quite happy with the lightness and the softness of it. I may, once I put the boat in, feel like tweaking the water here and making it a bit heavier, because the boat is black and red, and I may fade those colours down as well because I don't want it to be a huge thing. Okay, here we go. I'm just using my Derwent palette yet again, my big one, and this is the black that comes with it. So it's a nice black, not too much of a bluey black, nice neutral black. And also with the reds, I don't want to go too pretty and bright, so I might go more of a deeper red here. And I'm not even sure if I'll put that gold in yet, because I want this to be loose and not very captivating. I'm going to do wet on wet because I straight away know that wet on wet gives me lots of choice. I'm keeping the paint open on the paper, so you can see by my tint of reddish water here that I'm just wetting the top rail. I'm leaving a little tiny area here bright white paper, and I'll do the same on this side as well. I'll put in the picture, you can see where there's a bit of a highlight, and I want that to stay true white, or just the plain paper. And now I'm going to put in my black, but I'm very careful not to put in a heavy black, so I'm going to water down what I've got on my brush. I'm quite happy with that, it's nice and soft. If I went too heavy, and the same as if I did it too light, can you see that the tonal contrast between the water here and the black, if it was too dark, it would jump out, and therefore that would pull my attention too much. Now, if this was a painting about a canal boat and I had more of it in the picture, that might be a good thing. But it's not, it's just a general painting of the canal, so I really want to play it down a little bit. And that's why I'm using a runny brush with a wet paper. And this is really quite runny, so it's going to fade off quite nicely. I'm basically just picking up a bit of paint and just dropping it into the water. And it's doing its own wonderful watercolor thing. The sides down here are a little bit darker, so that means I'm not going to wet that area, because I want it to be contained, all these sides, I want them to be contained in their areas. It's just that top part I wanted to have a little bit loose. I'm going to leave a gap there, as I will on this bottom section as well, because that's just a little bit of detail that I do want to add in. While that's wet on the paper, I'm going to add in a little bit of dark just to show that it's not at the top. Same here, maybe more water on my brush. And I'm just colouring in now. Oopsie. Wetting my brush, so I'm eliminating the black that's in the brush and coming back with a moist brush. Oopsie, my hand. and that allows me just to fade that off quite quickly. Now I'm just going to wet this bottom part because I do want it to be soft. Can you see the difference between wet on dry here on the second 1, 2, 3 and this last one? When you do wet on wet, there's something quite beautiful that happens with watercolor, and it just kind of, that's where the happy accidents occur, and that's where a little bit of magic occurs, because most of us are critical of every mark that we put down onto a painting. It's just the way your brain works. But when you do something like that, I couldn't have imagined purposefully making that brush mark. But now I'm thinking, well, you know what, that's really light, that's dark, but hey, I'm just going to let it sit and I'll see what happens. I can take that out if I want, and I can add more here if I want to. But I kind of like that shape, so that makes me think, loosen up a bit and let things like that happen. And the more confident you get as a painter, which I hope you'll find as we develop all the paintings I've got to do ahead with you, you will get the confidence to try that. You kind of get a feeling of when you want to try it. You know, that's the part of experience actually, is when you get the feeling of, well, I might do that here, that's a good time. And there's no magic in that. It's more, well, I've done this kind of thing before and I remember, you know, when I did that and that. So just don't be disillusioned by all the beautiful artworks that you see out in the world and you thinking, oh, I'll never be able to paint like that. You really will. And I truly believe that, because I have seen students that I've taught and they've come without confidence at all, and then they develop into these beautiful artists and they grow and they get their confidence and they'll try things and they'll find their favourite way to do something. And it's truly a beautiful thing to witness. So yeah, keep at it and be kind and not too harsh on yourself, because you know it's a big thing that you're learning. It's a whole new world and you are brave enough to give it a go. So then you deserve to be congratulated, not put down or criticised. So this is this gold section here. I'm going to really play that down a bit, but I just did think I will add this little bit of sort of gold, because that will bring a connection up to this colour. Colour sends messages to each other. So when you're looking at a painting, if there's a bit of gold here and there's the same kind of colour up here, then that's going to make an actual connection visually. So that's a good thing, because we want the brain and our eyes to actually be going from here, bang, up to here. We've also got a natural arrowhead which helps us to point upwards, and subconsciously your brain actually does get affected by that. You know, look back at paintings and see the power of triangulation, which I will go through when we do more on composition. And it's kind of a secret way to get the viewer of your painting to look even in the order that you want them to look at things. You can actually influence them when you understand how to use this tool. So it is a good thing to just put a little bit of detail here. I'm not going to go into much. It's just going to be, I'll let that dry. It's just going to be quite random. But just by adding that there, we've now made a link, visual link to our buildings and reflections. Lastly, I'm going to put in the red. I'm going to do a bit of wet on wet here, because again, I'll keep it softer, but I want it to be interesting. I don't want it to be just really flat. I'll put this on, but I'm quite prepared to pull it right back if it's too pretty. It is a bit too pink, I think. So what I might do is, instead of adding something pretty as well, like maybe an orangey red, I'm going to add a bit of my burnt sienna, which in previous videos I've mentioned that burnt sienna in this Derwent is quite reddish compared to others I've had in other brands. I don't mind that, because in this instance it's going to work very well. So it's basically a desaturated red. And can you see, it's very subtle, but I'll pare that back a bit. I might even leave that white there. Now where you're going to notice it is on this step where it gets a bit darker. So more burnt sienna, I'm going to dip it into the red. And instead of using that beautiful luscious red, I'm going to go into this burnt sienna a little more. And I might add a fair bit of water to this bottom corner and just dab some in there because it's against the darker black and it's also running along the bottom. Not too much, just a little bit. And then without too much work, I might give it a bit of dark there to show that it's a step. So I'll put that in. And I'm really going to quickly fade this off. I'm pushing my entire bristles down onto the paper because there's less colour up the top here. So when they rub down, I'm only getting soft colour. And up here, I'm going to go into my black and burnt sienna because that's going to indicate a bit more shadowness. Oh, shadowness. I think I just made up a word. A bit more shadow. Darkness, I went to say. And it's really subtle, but again, I'm giving the feeling that there's depth there. And because it's so runny, I'm dabbing the brush in. Now what I'll do up here, just to really softly finish off, is go into my black, but I'll get a smaller brush, actually. Remember to test the paper's dry by its temperature. Oh, good. I'm just putting little dots because if I put a line, it might start to look too much information, a bit too organised. If I just do little dots and dashes, that gives me less detail, so my brain just writes it off as something a bit abstract. If I put too much detail in, then your brain actually starts to really try and figure stuff out, and that's when you get in trouble. That might be it, actually. Just the edges of that to get rid of that blue pencil line. A bit more weight here. I'm happy with that. Now that I've put it in, I can see I can dare to be a little bit darker. Not the whole thing, but just see here in the corners. And I'm okay with that too. That might need a bit darker. And then the last thing I want to do is go back into my yellow ochre, clean off this brush, yellow ochre, and I'm just going to run one smooth line, not stroke, because I don't want to pick up the black. I'm just running it. Doesn't matter if you go over the black a little bit, by the way. Oopsie. And I think I'm okay with that. That's probably enough. Let me just stand up and have a look. Yes. So I think the last thing I want to do is darken this bit just here, and not all over like I did last time in the wash. So I'll go to my Payne's Grey. I'll add a bit of my teal, but I'm not making it too runny. And that means I have the power to put it where I want. What I want to do is put it next to the boat. I'm just going to darken a few and then soften it by a wash. So when you put on specific shapes first and then wash over them, they will soften, but they don't disappear. They will keep an edge. I'm just carrying that down a little bit. I just, not necessarily there, but here, yeah, sort of lifts it up off the water a little bit. I might do it there too. And these little things that I'm thinking of doing, the assessment at the end, believe me, that comes with confidence and experience as well. So don't think that I have this magic gift. I have a series of questions that I sort of run through in my head, which I don't want to overwhelm you at this stage, but we will get to. And when you ask yourself those questions, when you think you've finished a painting, you'll get to know an immediate yes, no, and then you'll be doing this. You'll be going, oh, too weak, that needs a bit more, and you'll actually automatically know. That's the exciting part about learning painting. You've got all this ahead of you. It's so lovely and fun. There you have it with the boat in. Thanks, guys, and I look forward to our lovely loose watercolour sky on Friday. Bye. Have a great week. What I saw and what I painted.